They have it. Hey, Sachs,
Oh, hey
I see
guys,
somebody.
look who's here.
Oh, look who it is.
Oh, is it the proprietor?
The proprietor, the owner.
Twitter customer support at your service.
Zach, you spent the last 15 minutes selling your new features on the podcast. Pretty exciting.
Well, the views are like incredible. And I saw Dave Rubin already made an observation that if you look at New York Times, their views are maybe 1/10 like my views, just me as a lone tweeter. And he said that their followers are inflated by just basically buying a bunch of follower accounts.
Yeah, the views thing is huge. That's why I pushed the views, which is like actually a lot harder feature to implement than you'd think, because the sheer number of transactions per second, I think it sort of requires system-wide on the order of 3 million transactions a second to actually calculate the view, calculate and display the view count, FYI. For Twitter Global. So it's like 3 million per second. It's a lot.
For those of you listening, Elon Musk has joined the pod. Elon, how's the first 6 weeks been, generally speaking, of owning Twitter?
Well, it's been quite a roller coaster, which obviously you've witnessed and been on the roller coaster as well.
Yes, the Dramamine. I've taken the Dramamine. It's quite up and down.
I mean, it's exciting, but I think it sort of has its highs and lows, to say the least. But overall, it seems to be going in a good direction, and we've got the expenses reasonably under control, so the company's not like in the fast lane of bankruptcy anymore. And we're releasing features faster than Twitter's history, at the same time as having contained the costs and reduced the cost structure by a factor of 3, maybe 4. So. The verified is obviously that's huge. It's a revenue stream as well as a means of identifying, of like knowing that it's a real person and not a bot or a troll situation. Having the organization affiliation, which I suspect you talked about, that was an idea of David's that was great to have organization affiliation. So you can know that somebody is an actual professor at Stanford, or that this particular handle is actually Disney, not someone simply putting "I work at Disney" in their bio. So I think that's going to be really helpful. Just having detailed and nuanced verification. So of all the various things that you say you are these things validated by other people and organizations?
Can you tell us how you do product iteration, Elon? Because one of the things that I think some people got jolted by over the last couple of weeks is like a bunch of things got taken away or changed, or rules changed, or policies changed, and there was very quick action. And then people had all this negative feedback about the quick action without communication. But your extraordinary talent is to iterate product to success. Can you just maybe share with people how you do product iteration in this context to help them understand how some of these decisions get made and why moving quickly is so important, and just, how you're doing this?
I'm a big believer in you want to look at the net output. So it's sort of like, what's the batting average? If it's like baseball, the point is not that you hit the ball, but it's like, well, how many home runs you get, and how what's your
slugging percentage?
Yeah, slugging percentage. Yeah. It's like you're gonna swing for the fences. You're gonna strike out a bit more, but we're gonna swing for the fences here at Twitter, and we're gonna do it quickly. So. And I think generally, my error rate and sort of being the chief twit will be less over time. But in the beginning, we'll make obviously sort of a lot more mistakes. Because I'm new to I'm like, hey, I just got here, man. So, I mean, if you look at the actual amount of improvement that's happened at Twitter in terms of having costs that are not insane, and getting and actually shipping product that on balance is good. I think that is that's great. I think we're actually executing well and getting things done. I think we'll have fewer fewer gaffes in the future.
How did you get to your intuition on what the efficient frontier of employees needed to be to make the product better?
Well, yeah.
Well, I observed part of this where you basically asked the question, who here is critical and who here is exceptional?
Yes. I mean, it really, what the criteria is trying to apply, and obviously you're not going to be perfect if you're moving fast, and there's a lot of people you're talking about here, is that anyone who is exceptional at what they do, where the role is critical, they have a positive effect on others, and they are trusted, meaning they put the company's interests before their own, should stay.
Pretty straightforward.
Yeah, and also it also is up for working hard. Like was not Twitter's prior culture.
Yeah, were you surprised that the intersection of that circle and the people that left was basically 25%? Were you surprised it was that deep, or did you think your intuition was like, it's probably somewhere in here?
Well, I think you could just stand back and say, without knowing how many employees Twitter has at all, and say, how many people are really needed to run Twitter? Like, let's say you don't know what the employee headcount number is at all. How many people are needed to keep the site operational? Like, let's say, excluding product evolution, you basically have to keep the servers going, and you have to have customer sort of a support function to take down material that is in violation of the law. How many people? What's the minimum number of people?
That's in the hundreds, probably.
It's not exactly. It's not like a giant number.
Yeah.
Twitter still has like 2,000 people, right?
Yeah, we still have 2,000 people. It's not nothing. And actually, there's actually on the order of like almost 5,000 contractors. Like
still.
almost all of the what's called trust and safety work, which is like the support functions for the site, are done by contractors.
You're doing a lot more to take down hate speech than the company previously was doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, hate speech impressions are down by a third, and will get even lower.
Maybe you could speak a little bit to what we discovered, I think, in those early weeks, which was the incentive. The incentive previously was to create as many accounts as possible. And there were a lot of quick fixes to lowering all these, what people might call bot accounts. In some cases, it was people opening many millions of accounts. But we discovered this very early. How easy was it for you with the tech team to maybe lower the bot count and all the fake accounts? Maybe you could speak a little bit to that, because people have seemed to think that, gosh, it's a really hard thing to get rid of bots, and it turns out it isn't.
Well, we still have a fair number of bots in the system, but I think the incentive structure, the way Twitter was set up previously, was this relentless focus on what they called MDAO, which is monetizable daily active users. Although I would say the monetizable part is dubious. But at least things that appeared to be monetizable or could be passed off as monetizable daily active users. So this created an incentive to turn a blind eye to fake accounts. So if the incentive structure is maximize the appearance of monetizable daily active users, then it's a strong incentive to pretend that a bot is real. And that's what happened. So we've taken a lot of steps to reduce the bots and trolls situation. So many. And I think you're seeing that in the usage. Like, it's not like relatively rare to have your replies filled with crypto scams.
I'm not seeing any anymore. Freeberg, you had a question.
Yeah, I mean, just on your earlier question, Elon, when you first started making changes at Twitter after you bought the business, a lot of people kind of took notice at how extraordinarily swift and significant those changes were.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of technology companies that have CEOs and investors and boards, and we all talk to a lot of them, and they're all now having a conversation like, look at what Elon did at Twitter. How can we do something as aggressive, as swift, as deep? Do you think much about kind of the model you're playing for other businesses and other business leaders, particularly in Silicon Valley, and how you're operating Twitter? Do you ever kind of talk about that? Because I know you mostly talk about your business and you talk about the businesses you're running, but you're having a big influence, I think, in how other people kind of act and behave that are other business leaders and run other technology companies.
I mean, to be frank, I'm not really, I'm thinking about that much, because I'm just thinking about like, how do we, I'm just like, just get Twitter to be in a financially healthy place, and fix the engine of engineering so we can have a rapid evolution of new products. So, and I mean, I guess I'm in sort of in some ways an unfortunate position where I don't have to answer it. It's not public, and we don't have a board really. So, I mean, so I can just go, and I can take actions that are drastic. And obviously, if I make a bunch of mistakes, then Twitter won't succeed, and that'll be pretty embarrassing and sad. But as long as, like I said, as long as the batting average is good, that the wins significantly outweigh the mistakes, then it'll be a great future. And I think I'm very optimistic about where things are headed.
I think a lot of people want to talk about or understand, Elon, your position on freedom of speech and your principles. I'm curious, you've been pretty upfront about it. How do you think about it post-acquisition? What speech should be allowed on the platform? Kanye came back. He just went insane. His account got revoked. What have you learned, I guess, now that you own it? Because you must be getting a lot of inbound from people asking you, hey, how are decisions going to be made, et cetera. You've been clear. Transparency is super important in this, but maybe what are your thoughts on free speech and speech on a platform like this?
Well, I mean, the general principle, I think, is that we should hew close to the law in any given country. So the laws vary quite a lot by country. So I think we should be doing free speech that's close to the law. And that's the general principle. I think there are other things where it's like, okay, we like, for example, like if you're an advertiser, you don't want to necessarily, you don't want your ad, like let's say it's a family movie, next to some, NSFW content, even if that content is text. It's like, they'll be like, that's we don't, so that's part of what, so there's more of an allowance for what some might call hate speech on the system, but it's not going to be promoted. It's not like we're not going to be recommending hate speech. It's just at risk of stating the obvious. And we're not going to monetize hate speech. So, or negative speech. Like that's, nor would advertisers want us to. I think it's going to be a rare product that wants to be next to seriously negative stuff. I
was going to say, you referred to it as, hey, freedom of speech, but not reach, because this is a very nuanced discussion. Like, should this stuff be able to hit the trends, and that kind of stuff? Yeah.
Like it's certainly possible that some things that will be regarded as hate speech will hit trends, but I think it's going to be relatively unusual, especially as we are doing a better job of controlling the bots and trolls situation. And I do want to emphasize, like, there's a difference between the bots and the trolls. Like, bots are like fully automated accounts, but like a troll farm would be where you've got 100 people in a warehouse somewhere, each with 100 phones, and so they're actually humans, and they're going to pass a captcha test, and they can, reply, and because they're actually got humans, but it's actually 10,000 accounts that are obviously not operating as real people. So that's stuff like that can cause things to trend negatively. That's why I'm like a big proponent of having just a low cost verification capability. And but like this is definitely a work in progress. So there's like I said, there's going to be I did, like one of the first things I said after the acquisition closed was like, we're going to make a bunch of mistakes, but then we'll try to recover from them quickly. And that's what we've done. And I think we've generally succeeded in recovering from them quickly. And it's been going pretty well.
Was the Paul Graham and journalist suspensions mistakes? Have you talked about this publicly, about how that all kind of got resolved at the end?
Yeah, I mean, the Paul Graham suspension was definitely a mistake, and I actually called Paul Graham to apologize personally for that one.
Did. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. So, on the journalist front, I think the journalist suspensions were not a mistake in that for some reason a bunch of journalists thought they were better than everyone else, and that if they engage in doxing and break the rules in various ways, that they're not subject to suspension, even though your average citizen is. And I think that's just messed up. The same rules should apply to people who call themselves journalists as to anyone else on the system. They shouldn't be sort of above the rules. For some reason, they thought they should be. That doesn't make sense. I don't think that's right.
Yeah, and the rules being transparent and upfront, I think that's what everybody's looking forward to. Maybe some just complete clarity and transparency. And you've said from the beginning, when somebody gets suspended or this shadow banning or this sort of tips into this really weird stuff that we discovered or you discovered, or the journalists discovered during the Twitter files, it's kind of a bummer that people are being sanctioned or shadow banned and they don't know it. If we're going to have a system, the rules should be clear to everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. So the something I've committed to, and we'll I think probably be able to roll that out in January. Just by the way, there is like a bit of we are not going to be rolling out a ton of new features over Christmas and New Year's and stuff. So there's like the next sort of feature set will probably roll out mid to late January, and hopefully in that we can include information about why an account is suspended or has what is called within Twitter visibility filtering, aka shadow banning. So and some of these things are like there's a lot of things that just happen accidentally where there's the rules in the system that are meant to detect whether someone's a sort of bot or troll or like brigading, where they're and then an account is sort of innocently caught up in that. So like there were some accounts just suspended yesterday because were temporarily suspended. Like they got 12-hour suspensions because someone in trust and safety thought that they had posted a nude photo of Hunter Biden or something.
Here we go. Oh no!
But they hadn't actually done that. I don't know. It was just basically a mistake. There were some accounts that got a 12-hour suspension yesterday for in error, but they weren't sure why it happened. It was just essentially a mistake with Twitter customer support that was corrected.
Elon, let me ask you just a slightly broader question. One of the things we just talked about was the regime change that's happened, where we all have to act differently now that the risk-free rate is probably going to get to 5%. And I'm just curious, across all your businesses, so Twitter, yes, but really more importantly, Tesla, SpaceX, are there decisions that you will make differently or not at all, or will make that you wouldn't have made otherwise in this new regime? And how often do you think about that kind of stuff?
Well, I think it's more like it does seem like we're headed into a recession here in 2023. The magnitude of that recession is debatable, but I think it's at least a light to moderate recession. Potentially, it's on the order of 2009. So I think it's wise to kind of like prepare for the worst, hope for the best, prepare for the worst. Don't get too adventurous. Like watch out for margin debt. Like I would really advise people to not have margin debt. in a volatile stock market. And, from a cash standpoint, keep powder dry. You can get some pretty extreme things happening in a down market. Like Brett Johnson, who was a CFO, who is a CFO of SpaceX, was at Broadcom in 2000, and he said that, and that's a good company making good products. And he said the from peak to trough, I think in less than 12 months, Broadcom went down 97%. So, like, even if you had a small margin loan there, you got crushed. It subsequently recovered, and I think to much higher levels. But if there's like mass panic in the stock market, then you got to really be careful about margin debt. So, but I mean, this is just as we know, the economy is cyclic. So, and we're somewhat overdue for a recession. And my best guess is that, we have sort of stormy times for a year to a year and a half, and then things start to, dawn breaks roughly in Q2 24, if I were to guess. That's like my best guess. Recessions don't, like booms don't last forever, but neither do recessions.
And it's a 14-year boom, so a 6-quarter recession seems like that might actually balance out. The last time it was 4 or 5 quarters, so it's not easy. Hey, the Twitter files. How much longer are these going to go on? It seems like every week another drop, and these are pretty controversial. How much longer are the Twitter files going to go on in your mind? Yeah. And maybe why is this important to you to make sure that people understand the stuff? Yeah.
I think it's important to, if we're going to be trusted in the future, to kind of clear the decks for stuff that's happened in the past. So, to be totally frank, almost every conspiracy theory that people had about Twitter turned out to be true. So, is there a conspiracy theory about Twitter that didn't turn out to be true? So far, they've all turned out to be true. And if not, more true than people thought.
Is there a part of the files that really shocked you more than the rest of them? Like, of the things that have been disclosed? Of all of these things, is there something that really sticks out with you as like, holy shit, I had no idea this was happening? Or is the whole thing just a big dumpster fire? We're just looking at one huge thing. Like PSYOPs versus the Hunter Biden thing versus the...
Yeah.
The number of FBI people involved, that was
the
pretty
FBI
shocking.
stuff is pretty intense.
Yeah, the FBI PSYOP stuff to me was probably the one that was the most insidious. Like, the rest of it I could think of like, a bunch of overzealous libs got used.
Yeah.
Got it. You know what I mean?
Sure.
But to have like a secure skiff that essentially sends things that, government agents want the populace to basically think, seems like out of a really bad dystopian novel. And then it turns out it existed. And then the thing is, it couldn't have just existed at Twitter. So what are we going to do about all the other places where this shit's happening?
YouTube, Facebook, yeah.
That's why none of it seemed that surprising to me. I don't know, maybe I just believed all the conspiracy theories, but I've also been inside some of these companies and seen how they operate. So honestly, none of it was a surprise to me. Was it a big shock to you, Elon?
Wait. You Freeberg, you were, I think you can claim that you weren't surprised that these companies were shadow banning, although they denied it. But did you really suspect that the FBI was playing a role in flagging content for these companies to take down? That blew me away.
Content that's got nothing to do with terrorism.
Yeah, they're not investigating crimes. There's no crime.
Right.
Yeah, they literally flagged satire. Maybe they didn't get the joke. I don't know, but
they don't seem to be a humor-driven group, but they don't seem to have the best senses of humor. But aren't they supposed to get warrants? Isn't that how it's supposed to work in a democracy? They want information about users.
They're asking favors of their
friends.
friends. Yeah, they're all friends.
That's the thing that's troubling to me. Put yourself on either side of the extremes.
Hey, we have Michael Schellenberger here who broke the FBI story in the Twitter files. So let's flip it to him and to see he can because I think maybe the audience isn't caught up on what was discovered. So
Now
Michael,
I
how are
have
you?
to follow Elon Musk. That doesn't seem fair.
Yeah.
Hey, guys.
Hey, Michael, how are
I
you?
head back to work. So, all right.
right.
Thanks, guys.
See you later,
Good to see you.
Elon. Thank you for
See you.
stopping by.
Thanks.
Hey, guys.